Mr. Hogan?
Thank you. Aloysius Hogan, Competitive Enterprise Institute. Wanted to address the problem of whether non-parties should be served with board filings in any circumstances. And I posed earlier the problem of increasing the understanding of the workers in a neutrality agreement situation. Dr. Murray earlier had phrased, "We are the union. We are the ones organizing." You've got somebody when this is all triggered. By definition, somebody is organizing. Somebody is pushing the union agenda, and the workers normally in this situation getting the other side of the story from the employer not getting it. So in such situations, I think it militates toward affording the non-parties an opportunity to be educated. How do we get these workers educated? On the side commonly explained by the company. I'm not talking about a right for these people or a duty to educate these people, as Chairman Pierce had begun to allude to. No government education, no duty of the board to educate these people in the absence of the employer doing the education, but rather allowing a notice to outside groups. And here I'm talking about the groups that would be notified would be doing the job of correcting the imbalance in information by giving the side of the story that normally the corporations. I'm not talking. What you would run into quickly is the worker centers, that they'd say, "Oh, we want to join in here, and we're happy to give them information too," but that side of the story is already being handled. I'm talking about the other side of the story that's not in this scenario, and so kind of a trigger if there's nobody taking care of that side of the story, say neutrality agreement. However, it can't be limited to that scenario, because let's say that were the situation, that if there's a neutrality agreement, nobody giving that side of the story, then the union and the business that are working together would know, well, then you're going to get the other side of the story from somebody else, so we better not actually have a neutrality agreement. We'll phone it in, and we'll really give you the information, and they'll just half-hearted, quarter-hearted give you the information, just so that no third party could come in. What I'm talking about is, I believe the objective can be achieved by making the opportunity known to outside groups that want to help, not a referral service, but there are outside groups, as we saw in Tennessee, in Chattanooga, that are willing to serve that role, nonprofits, institutes, foundations, charities, that are happy to help do the education. And in that scenario, is it right that they would be notified of that situation, that opportunity, to fill that void in the process, which has, in that case, kind of broken down and not served that group of people? I'm throwing that out there as something to chew on, and I don't have all the answers on that, but I think it is a concern that the board should consider.
So you're talking about like a labor version of the League of Women Voters being brought in to kind of educate everybody?
Well, and it'd be a voluntary thing. It'd be no government expense, and there are groups out there that do this sort of thing, charities. And
that do specifically, what are you talking about them doing, these charities? What would they be doing?
They'd be educating. For example, one of the things that very complex that we haven't even discussed too much is labor economics. Forget the law. There's all the.
We can't employ economists.
No,
keep going.
We're not talking about employing economists. This is all. But trying to get people to understand a lot of complex stuff that they have to get in a quick period of time, and they need to learn this so that they can make an informed decision. In fact, I did want to make a point on the time that it would take to learn this stuff. by analogy to the McCain-Feingold Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act, which of course was overturned. But the point I'm making there is that the legislators had in mind a 60-day window before the general election that would be a minimum of 60 days when you could educate the people about the issues in the election and the people involved in the election. So it's going to take some time if you've got nobody helping the workers learn about this other side of the story. I would say you need a little extra time, and that's just a window of time that you could look to.
Okay, a few things. One is, under our proposal, a notice is going to go up at the time the petition gets filed, so everybody's going to see that in the workplace. And there are companies that see our petitions that come in, they get them through FOIA requests and then just put them out there, so you could, any such charity could subscribe to that list if it wanted to. And then I guess you're not suggesting we regulate the entry into neutrality agreements between unions and employers with some sort of notice appendage?
No,
okay.
Not at all. I am considering more like an opt-in situation where you would be permissive to allow these groups to serve the role of educating these people.
But who's doing the opting, and who determines who the groups are?
Well, that's it. The groups would essentially volunteer. They'd be opting in. It'd be the groups themselves, the educators, if you will.
Right, but who's going to be checking the box saying, I would like to inform Southern Momentum of this, proposed election?
Well,
I don't understand that.
Well, once they're informed of the scenario that we're talking about, where there's a disserved population, that's what would trigger it. And that's what would take some discernment, because it's not just, as I went through my scenario, it's not just when there's a neutrality agreement, but it's also when there's any hint of a wink-wink, shall we say,
Okay, but that would be impossible to monitor. I guess also neutrality agreements, some people think of those as a social good because essentially they might secure the labor peace, which some people may say, well, the NLRA is built around labor peace. It just seems like it would be incredibly, even if we wanted to regulate this, it would be incredibly difficult to do.
Again, I'm not saying to regulate it, but to afford the opportunity. And in fact, you said you were interested in the process and process breakdowns, and it seems here that there's a disserved population increasingly, well, depending upon what happens with neutrality agreements ultimately.
Okay, well, folks can get the app, and I also think if there's any organization that wants to see if there's an election coming around, there are petition monitoring services.
And Mr. Hogan, the one thing I do gather from your comments, and I would guess that others would agree, that there certainly are a variety of interests, not just those of the employer, those of the employees, or those of unions that are involved in representation cases that are both affected and also have an interest in what happens with respect to these types of issues and disputes. Would you agree with that?
Very much so, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank this seating and the patience of all of you to wait to get your statements in and your presentations. I'd like to thank all participants in this public hearing. It was comprehensive, very educational, useful to us in our deliberations. I commend the commitment that all of you have demonstrated, your knowledge of the circumstances, the data that you've provided, and well thought out arguments and points that are definitely worthy of reflection. I hope that you've been comfortable with how this process went, and I at least got one compliment on how it was done, and I hope everybody shares that. And I thank you again for traveling from your distances to do this, and we appreciate your efforts.
Happy Constitutionality Day. Thanks for coming.
This hearing is now closed.
Thank you.